The Republicans finally determined a solution to gun violence, and it's to give every teacher in America a ballroom. Trump's war with Iran has gone from on again, off again, like Ross and Rachel. The more of a Josh and Donna will they or won't they will catch you up. James Comey indicted again, this time for one of the past decade's lamer social media posts. If we have time, we'll talk Sergey Brin's heel turn, DeSantis' entry into the redistricting fight, John Fetterman's latest questionable choice, and of course, gas prices. Welcome back to the podcast for the 54% of Americans who vote for progress and want to convince their friends and family members to join our majority.
All right. Obviously, the big news of the week is the assassination attempt at the White House Correspondents' Dinner. And it seems like, the immediate impression that people were getting around the country, this certainly was mine, was like, oh man, this happened again. And of course, there was an attempt. But I think the more we learn about it, the more we learn that this guy didn't really get as close as some of these other incidents, obviously, notably the one where the shots were fired and hit Trump's ear. This guy didn't get into the ballroom. I think as of today, we believe that he didn't even fire any shots. Is that your understanding, Jason?
I'm not sure, but I definitely agree with your characterization about it's been not, you can never say it's overplayed when there was an assassination attempt and there was a person who had a plan and they got, within some proximity to the president or whoever he was targeting in the administration. But I've been to one White House Correspondents' Dinner, and it's everybody's so amazed that they didn't have security to enter the hotel. I don't know if it's the same hotel it was in when we went a few years ago, but it is a large hotel with a large ballroom. And to think that because there's an event with the president in one large room, that you're going to shut down an entire huge Washington hotel is a little naive and has not been done. And there's really, from what I can tell, not a lot of reason to believe that the president was in a great deal of danger or anybody else who would have been targeted was in a great, am I reading this wrong? They secured the room he was in. That's their job.
I don't think he got into the ballroom, and I'm sure the Secret Service, there was some layers of protection that he got through. Like, obviously that's why you have many layers of protection. And I would imagine there are certain things they're going to want to change about this. And maybe they do shut down entire hotels moving forward. But not to minimize it, but more to just put it in its proper place, especially given the fact that there is a tendency out there for folks to politicize these events and try to draw sort of broad conclusions, in some cases policy conclusions from these. The president certainly didn't waste any time. Here is a clip of him with his tuxedo on the night of the event, after the event.
And we looked at all of the conditions that took place tonight, and I will say, it's not a particularly secure building, and I didn't want to say this, but this is why we have to have all of the attributes of what we're planning at the White House. It's actually a larger room, and it's much more secure. It's drone-proof, it's bulletproof glass. We need the ballroom. That's why Secret Service, that's why the military are demanding it. They've wanted the ballroom for 150 years for lots of different reasons, but today's a little bit different because today we need levels of security that probably nobody's ever seen before.
So,
for 150 years, the military's been like, we need a ballroom. I don't recall that coming up when I was in the military.
I've been thinking about this a lot, and there's a clip we could play, but I don't think we should play it, which is Trump, a year ago talking about how he was going to pay for this ballroom himself, right? So, but now they're moving legislation through to have the American people pay for this ballroom. I'm torn, Jason, between whether this is we want to go for this fight or not. Meaning, like, there's so many inconvenient, terrible things going on that are really bad for the president and really bad for the country, that I'm not sure like a week of ballroom debate is a good use of time and energy. But I'm like, this is a loosely held position. I'm curious as to where you come out on this.
I think that a week of ballroom debate, a year of ballroom debate is fine as long as we have a really strict rule that is followed by everybody doing any of the talking on our side, which is you're not allowed to talk about the ballroom without talking about something that matters in the same sentence. Like you can talk about the ballroom as long as you're talking about it in a way of saying this guy's focused on building himself a ballroom while gas prices are this high, while there's a war going on, while you can't afford your house. What, you can do that. But debating whether we need a ballroom on the wing of that White House that this dude already knocked down is not a debate. Like we don't. It's not a priority for anyone.
Yeah, and I think like from a factual perspective, this event wouldn't have been held in any ballroom at the White House because it wasn't the president's event. He was invited. On the other hand, like it's not like crazy to think about like whether we need a bigger event venue that the Secret Service can control. And
Sure,
obviously the
but
process matters. Yeah.
if all we care about is the security of it, why is it even above ground? Like if the goal here is to if the goal here is strictly to create a secure facility, and apparently now we're going to work from home, all events are going to be held in the secure facility. Go all the way, man. Like put it 30 stories down, have it be a bat cave. I mean, like what I'm saying makes no sense, but it makes an equal amount of sense to what Trump is saying.
This I think so. I'm not sure. I guess my point is like I could see that messaging that you're talking about being effective. I also try to put myself in Trump's position, which is like he wants to distract as much as possible from the bad economy and this war that's going on. And so like, yeah, like if we're going to talk about this thing, we have to attach it to those things and be like, he's worried about this ballroom while this war is getting out of control and the economy continues to sink. As opposed to, hey, like Orange Man bad ballroom is gaudy and he didn't go through the proper like GSA rules to build this thing.
Whenever we talk about this, I would zoom out. All right. And let's talk about the things that Donald Trump has put a lot of energy into. He's put a lot of energy into a big remodel of the White House, right? And he's done other stuff in the past, but now this, he's putting a lot of energy into trying to get this big arch thing put in Washington. He's now talking about how the reflecting pool is cleaner under him than, I mean, the guy wants to be, some people would say the mayor of Washington. I would draw a different analogy as we go into 2026 midterms, but really more as we start to frame what the 28 election is going to look like. And I would say he is an interior decorator and this country needs an architect. He is really distracted and has been for years with what he can plate with gold and what looks this way and that way, because he's the king of vanity metrics. He's the king of it. It doesn't actually have to be good. It just has to look good. And what America needs is somebody who actually is interested in building an entire country, an entire community, and not just the area right around them. And that's what Trump's about, man. He's like, what color should we paint the walls? And it's like, hey, should our town have train service? So I think that's the disconnect. That's how I'd talk about it.
Well, he went beyond talking about this ballroom. There's been what we could predict to be a sort of quick blame game going on here about who's responsible for this guy. Here's Katie Miller, sort of wife of Jason Miller. Jason Miller? Yeah.
Stephen Miller.
Stephen Miller, sorry.
There's a couple of bad Millers. And
it's Stephen Miller's wife who was in the ballroom. This is her.
You know, it is crazy, as we just saw your intro, about the political violence and political rhetoric in this country. It's no mistake that this man hails from the state of California, and that of Gavin Newsom, who is one of the worst offenders of this violent political rhetoric that we see that sparks this man's imagination.
Connect the dots for me here. What's Gavin Newsom's culpability here? The guy came from California. That's where we could start.
What else do you need to hear, Robbie?
Yeah. Well, I'm sure he said some stuff, but it's like, why are we here again? Like, do we have to mention just what the president said about Robert Mueller just a few weeks ago? that he said he was glad he was dead, or what he said about Rob Reiner, or what he said about any number of people, like hanging journalists and, whatever. Like,
John McCain.
yeah, I mean, it's crazy. I don't think we need to devote too much time to that. On Fox News, this is more of an extended clip, but they did this. This is just where we are now. We have this debate every time something like this happens. This is the Fox News version of it.
I just feel like this is a massive gaslighting scene. I mean, the Hakeem Jeffries comparison, I think, is so unfair. He's talking about redistricting. He's not talking about a human being. He's certainly not talking about a Republican. And you say Democrats went out and called Donald Trump a threat to democracy. Absolutely. The guy still doesn't accept the 2020 results, and a majority of the party doesn't, as a consequence of the fact that he continued to proliferate that lie. The language, part of the being the most important person, certainly in the country and arguably in the world, is that you have great responsibility to set the tone. And Republicans who are out there criticizing Democrats right now are the ones who run from reporters in the hallways when Donald Trump has done something absurd, like celebrate Rob Reiner's death, or say, Bob Mueller, good riddance, whatever it is. And you say you can run through things Democrats have said. Donald Trump, enemy within, communists, Marxists, fascists, radical thugs, vermin, garbage, traitors, sick, party of hate, evil, and Satan. You're right about that data. It's disturbing. But the more important data to this is what's come out from Cato, which is where the violence is actually coming from, checking exactly the cause. There has been an uptick in left-wing violence. Absolutely, it is an issue. I want to solve it. But it's still more right-wing violence. And
not true.
It is true.
The studies are, a lot of them are rebuked.
Okay. Well, the Cato one,
we said, just an update for the viewers. We said a while back on this show that we wanted to have Jessica Tarlov on because we admire so much the yeoman's work that she does on Fox. And so I reached out and I actually had a nice email exchange with her. It turns out she, I think, listens to the show occasionally. She's definitely a fan. And so she connected me with someone at Fox and was like, I have an exclusive with them. They kind of sign off on what I can and cannot do. And the person at Fox just never, I think, decided no and never got back to me. So that's why we've not had her on, but we remain
blacklisted
admirers of hers.
Well, I thought she did an effective job of talking about the right-wing culpability. There was some data here, and thinking about, what is going on our side here. There's data from the Manhattan Institute. This is courtesy of Jesse Arm, that they did a poll. I think this was a couple months ago, and found that 46% of today's Democratic coalition believes, quote, the assassination attempt against Donald Trump in July 2024 was orchestrated by his supporters to increase sympathy for him. That's 46%.
Mm-hmm.
That seems awfully high.
Yes, and I don't know if this has happened for you, but I've seen it both on social media and anecdotally in conversations I've had with friends where in the past few days since this incident, I've had an awful lot of people suggest to me that they think that this was not real. I'm curious if that's happened for you.
Yeah, I was actually at a kind of fancy retreat thing over the weekend, and there were very informed people there, and even there, I was fielding these types of questions. And I think this also dovetails with just a comfort level with violence. Like I've seen, I can't even count anymore. And you and I have traded some of these clips back when it was rare, but like the amount of people who are pro Luigi Mangione. And I just think that there's definitely a rising tide of comfort with political violence. You and I have been talking about it for years. And I think we like to fool ourselves into thinking that the right has a monopoly on this, but they don't. I think what I can say that has been true as of now is that our political leaders, for the most part, on the Democratic side, have done a very good job of resisting the pressure of that 46%. So we haven't had a January 6th. I think that there were moments where we were excusing certain forms of political violence, but if you look at the No Kings rallies and things like what happened in Minneapolis, We are training people to be nonviolent on the streets, and we're pretty much, I think, like, we have a pretty clean bill of health on these questions at the moment. But I think this 46% tells us that we need to be very careful because, politicians, as you know, follow their incentives. And if that 46% gets loud and starts asking for something different from our politicians, we could find ourselves in a very dangerous position.
Yeah. And I want to be clear, because there are people watching or listening to this who still believe that both of those assassination attempts were staged. And I just want to be clear with folks, they were not. And I will, if you want logic on it, I will give you that, which is that, one, I don't think that there's any reason to believe that, particularly in this last one. Now, the other one, during an election, I could see where I don't believe it was staged at all, but I could see where somebody tries to make the argument, it was advantageous politically, probably did work out, I don't think on purpose, but did work out well politically, I guess, for them. Again, don't think it was staged at all. But anymore, there's so much in the news and there's so much crap going, this thing was out of the news in 2 days. So I don't think it, and I don't think it garnered sympathy. I don't, because like you said, we're unfortunately becoming so desensitized to violence that I don't think it has that effect. But if you don't agree with that and you think that, oh, well, they do have an incentive to stage it, what I will grant you is Donald Trump the kind of guy that if he could stage something like that would consider it? Yes, I do think that. But what I don't believe is that the same administration that got us into a war where the primary objective now seems to be opening the Strait of Hormuz that was open beforehand and stumbled their way into all of this calamity also can pull off one, let alone two, fake assassination attempts without a single leak ever, while they're all backbiting and leaking against each other and everything else. No, I'm sorry. I don't believe they have the level of confidence or competence to pull off any sort of conspiracy of that nature at all.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, obviously, shoot us a note I'm always curious to see what's out there in the audience. I'm continually surprised by some people. But if you have a theory as to what, if you have a counter theory, send it to us. I'm actually curious as to what people in our audience are trafficking in right now. So I won't bite. Send it to me, and it'll give me awareness. Maybe we'll talk about it next week. I always like to know what's happening out there. But this isn't the only thing happening here. Trump, like clockwork, and his wife have called on Jimmy Kimmel to be fired. What was the joke? It was something like, do you remember the joke?
He somehow or another it was a few days before this happened, and he somehow or another referred to her as an expectant widow, which is, I think, supposed to be a joke that is both about, he said she has the glow of an expectant widow, which I think was supposed to be a joke about he's old, a joke about his health, and also a joke about the idea that she doesn't like him.
Yeah. And obviously the pearl clutching begins here. We'll talk more about James Comey in a second and the relationship between that and this. Trump obviously calling on ABC to fire Kimmel. As of this recording, I don't think that they have succumbed to that pressure. This is where we are. This is supposed to be the free speech administration. And, not too long ago, and this is February 2025, here's JD Vance at the Munich Security Conference just crowing about how pro-free speech this administration is and lecturing Europeans about it.
Our own government encouraged private companies to silence people who dared to utter what turned out to be an obvious truth. So I come here today not just with an observation, but with an offer. And just as the Biden administration seemed desperate to silence people for speaking their minds, so the Trump administration will do precisely the opposite, and I hope that we can work together on that. In Washington, there is a new sheriff in town, and under Donald Trump's leadership, we may disagree with your views, but we will fight to defend your right to offer it in the public square, agree or disagree.
All right. Well, we're going to take a break, Jason. And when we come back, we got a lot to talk about. We got this Comey indictment. We've got a lot of Iran stuff happening here. We've got some breaking news on the redistricting front and a lot more when we get back.
With an Aura frame, you can capture and relive mom's magic every day. Think about that one photo of your mom or your partner that always makes you stop and smile. Maybe it's a candid shot from a family dinner or a quick photo you took when they weren't looking. Usually those shots just sit in your phone's cloud, buried under thousands of other files, but with an Aura frame, you can capture and relive mom's magic every day. It's about taking those memories out of your head and putting them right where you can see them. It's often the little everyday routines that end up meaning the most. The way she handles the morning rush or those quiet Sunday afternoons. Aura helps keep those specific moments alive. I've found that being able to share your photos and videos effortlessly is a game changer. You just download the free Aura app and send photos straight to the frame from anywhere in the world. It's no wonder they were the top-rated app that reached #1 in the App Store on Christmas Day in 2025. Aura makes gifting incredibly simple. You can even preload photos before the frame ships and add a personalized message so it's ready to go the second she plugs it in. Plus, it comes in a premium gift box with no price tag, so the presentation is already handled for you. Named #1 by Wirecutter, you can save on the gifts moms love by visiting auraframes.com. For a limited time, listeners can get $25 off their best-selling Carver matte frame with code MAJORITY54. That's AURA frames.com, promo code MAJORITY54. Support the show by mentioning us at checkout. Terms and conditions apply.
Guys, if your hair isn't playing like it did in your 20s, it might be time for a real comeback, not another workaround. I feel this. Just yesterday, I turned 43 years old. I'm getting old. And I realized that throwing on a hat isn't a strategy. Nutrafol supports healthier hair from within. It's physician formulated, clinically tested, and recommended by dermatologists, giving you a clear, legitimate plan so you could stop covering up and start showing up with confidence. Nutrafol now offers hair growth supplements tailored to men of every age because the root causes of hair thinning change over time, and your routine should too. Nutrafol Men for ages 18 to 49 is there to help improve hair growth and achieve thicker, fuller hair in 3 to 6 months. And new Nutrafol Men 50 Plus is the first and only hair growth product specifically formulated for men 50 plus. Nutrafol is the #1 dermatologist recommended hair growth supplement brand, trusted by over 1.5 million people. And you could feel great about what you're putting into your body since Nutrafol hair growth supplements are backed by peer-reviewed studies and NSF content certified, the gold standard in third-party certification for supplements. Adding Nutrafol to your daily routine is easy. Order online, no prescription needed, with automated deliveries and free shipping to keep you on track. Plus, with a Nutrafol subscription, you could save up to 20% and get added perks to support your hair growth journey. Start Nutrafol today and make that hat optional. Visit Nutrafol.com and enter promo code MAJORITY for $10 off your first month's subscription and get free shipping. Find out why Nutrafol is the best-selling hair growth supplement brand at Nutrafol.com. That's spelled Nutrafol.com. Promo code MAJORITY. That's Nutrafol.com. Promo code MAJORITY. All right. Well, Hegseth is testifying as we speak on the Hill, and I peeked a little bit of it. I don't know if you got a chance to see some of it, but he has no answers on anything from what were their objectives going in? What did he say to the president going in? What we should read from the president's many tweets. Hegseth says those tweets are off limits, but the president's basically conducting policy through tweets. He couldn't explain why they moved minesweepers away from the Gulf right before this conflict, even though he says he anticipated the closing of the Strait of the Hormuz. So those two things are obviously contradictory. It's your standard petulant, obfuscating, uninformed testimony on the Hill. And this comes as the Hill newspaper reports that Republicans are losing faith in him. Now, what they can or would do about it is anybody's guess. But the president keeps tweeting on or truthing on. At 4:05 a.m. Eastern today, he tweeted a picture of himself with all caps, "No more Mr. Nice Guy." He's holding some kind of, you probably know what this gun is. I don't know if that's the AR-15 or whatever that thing is.
I'm looking close. I think he's holding an M4 with a scope.
And it says Iran can't get their act together. They don't know how to sign a non-nuclear deal. They better get smart soon, President DJT. This is embarrassing and desperate. Somehow we had a president in Obama who had the red line in Syria that he didn't back up. And that was like, the weakest thing a president could do according to conventional wisdom. And it wasn't great. You should never say anything like there's a red line, and then when people cross it, you do nothing. But it seems like our president, Jason, is doing it every day. And to be clear, I don't want him to do anything to back up his rhetoric, but he just keeps threatening, empty threats.
Yeah. Well, at some point, it just becomes meaningless. And it's also like trauma-inducing for everyone. I mean, whether you're in the region or not, just you don't know what's going to happen, which is sort of his goal here, is to just have everybody guessing. But I think the truth is, he's, as usual, as we discussed at the beginning, he's more concerned with how everything looks than how it actually is. And so as long as that's why you don't see any sort of nuance. He'll either talk super tough so that he's satisfying anybody who wants him to, be the big bully who represents America doing whatever it wants, or he's all about, we're getting peace. Everything's going to be fine. There's never like, hey, we have a lot of work to do. You never hear the reality.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to see where this goes from here. The Wall Street Journal reported yesterday that Trump is telling aides to prepare for an extended blockade. And you hear that, I think, when from what little we can gather from public statements from members of the administration, is that they're preparing for this to go on for a long time. And the economic consequences are going to be extreme. But there's also no sense here as to what the off-ramp will be. And, you and I were talking about this last week, is like, what's the most likely outcome is like that there is no actual deal. Because I think if he signs a deal, it will inevitably warrant comparisons to what Obama negotiated, and whatever he negotiates will inevitably be at best exactly what Obama got. But I actually don't think we even get that. So it will be embarrassing. So I think the lack of a deal in some ways is the best scenario for him, even though it has extreme calamitous consequences for our economy and for the region. That's where we are now. There was also a great daily episode, I think it came out Monday, that looked at who's in charge in Iran. And we don't know a lot about the state of the Ayatollah, but there was speculation that he's lost at least one limb, that he can't really speak properly, that he is, wherever he is, he's without technology, and they're like passing notes, and that there's like a council of loyalists who are making decisions for him. And when you don't have somebody to negotiate with, that's dangerous. Like any conflict, I was just reading this book about the troubles in Northern Ireland. Whatever people think about Jerry Adams, and I think Jerry Adams was a pretty bad figure, there's no resolution to the troubles without Jerry Adams, because you needed somebody who could speak to all the elements of the resistance. And I don't think we have somebody in Iran who can negotiate with the United States right now. And that makes me very concerned that we could never find an off-ramp to this.
Well, and Trump has been alluding to that idea, but the other side to that problem, looking through the other end of the telescope, is that there's not really one person to negotiate with on our side, because you don't know which version of Trump is going to wake up every day.
Yeah.
So if you are Iran, or if you're more likely the international community who's trying to mediate the situation and sort of bring some sort of peaceful solution about, you don't know who's going to be in Trump's ear from one day to the next, and you don't know his comments about Iran over the past couple months have basically been at the whim of his mood. It really does seem to be, if he's having a good day, then maybe he's going to characterize it as, it's all going to be good. And if something happens that upsets him, which I don't even know if it has to be Iran related, all of a sudden it's no more Mr. Nice Guy again. So I'm not sure what the international community is supposed to do in negotiating with our dude either.
I actually don't think people are grasping where we're heading right now. Like, I spoke today, and I'll air this on Friday, but I spoke today to the chief economist at ExxonMobil. And he said any given year in American history, going back to like 1900, we have a 1 in 10 chance of an oil-induced recession. Every year, 1 in 10 chance. What do you think? Like, do you think we're in that? Has there been another year over the past 10 years that you think is more likely than the one we're in right now? Like, I'm not sure everybody's waking up to this.
Well, and on top of that, there's no evidence whatsoever that Trump or anyone in his government has a plan to A, respond when that happens, but more importantly, B, do anything to prevent it, because
Right.
they don't have a plan to get off of this ride at all. They don't have a plan to end the war. They don't have a plan to win it. They don't. it- It's oddly become just another issue in Washington. The fact that we are at war with Iran has become an issue on the level of affordability or AI or it's or the Epstein files. It's just another thing,
Yeah.
which is wild because it's a
Well,
war.
you know who agrees with you that there's no plan is the Chancellor of Germany. Here's what he had to say.
It is quite obvious that the Americans have absolutely no coherent strategy whatsoever. And the fundamental problem with these kinds of conflicts is always the same. It is not enough to simply get yourself in. You must also figure out how to get yourself out again. We witnessed that reality quite painfully in Afghanistan over the course of 20 long years. We saw the exact same thing happen in Iraq. So this entire situation is, as I have mentioned previously, at the very least it was ill-considered, and I really do not see at this present moment which one you mean. What strategic exit the Americans are choosing now, especially since the Iranians are obviously negotiating very skillfully, or for that matter, very skillfully not negotiating, and making the Americans travel to Islamabad and then letting them leave again empty-handed. A whole nation is being humiliated there.
So that's great. Germany is like, hey, you got yourself into a war you don't know how to finish. Thank you. Now Germany's like, what are you doing? It's Germany. Like, and they're like, what are you doing? I don't know.
I don't see a deal coming. I really don't anytime soon.
I stand by my prediction from last week, which is this presidency will end in 3 years, and we will still be in an indefinite ceasefire in an ongoing war with Iran. We may not have fired another shot, and they may not have either, but we will technically still be on war footing with Iran.
What is the line where they're still at war? Is it North and South Korea? What are the people that they're just continuously at war? Yeah. I think I said this, I think we have to start saying at some point, maybe now, Trump lost a war. That's what happened. And I think we have to be clear about that. Like, he lost a war. And Americans don't love that. Well, we're going to take a break. When we come back, we're going to talk about Comey. We're going to talk about DeSantis and the redistricting push in Florida. We're going to talk about this ruling that just came down from the Supreme Court on the Voting Rights Act. And we'll talk about more when we come back. I have something crazy to say. I don't mind scooping my family's cat's litter box, honestly. Ever since we started feeding our cat Smalls, their poop has been healthier, smaller, and a lot less smelly. That's because Smalls is fresh, human-grade cat food that's made from high-quality meat, not cheap fillers. And you see, meat is easy for our cats to digest, which means their bodies can absorb more nutrients, and healthier poops come out of their rear end. In contrast, the stuff that we used to feed our cat was made with grains and artificial ingredients that were hard on our cat's body. Their nasty poop was proof of that. And Smalls isn't just good for digestion. 80% of cat parents say that after feeding their cat Smalls, their cat is softer and shinier, has more energy to play, and overall just seems healthier because it's really good for cats. And if you want to invest in your cat's health, Smalls is giving you 60% off your cat's first order, plus free shipping and free treats for life when you go to smalls.com/majority54. If your cat doesn't like it, Smalls will refund 100% of your order. But trust me, your cat's going to love the taste of Smalls, and you'll love that your house no longer smells like a litter box all the time. That's 60% off plus free shipping and free treats for life when you go to smalls.com/majority54. It's time for some spring cleaning. When it comes to the scent of your laundry, it shouldn't smell like the same thing you use to disinfect your bathroom. Enter Laundry Sauce, the premium scented laundry pods that don't just clean your clothes, they elevate them. Say hello to luxurious, fine fragrance that lasts. Imagine stepping outside on the perfect spring morning with your clothes smelling like Australian sandalwood, Italian bergamot, or Egyptian rose. Laundry Sauce isn't just about smelling incredible, it's engineered for performance. These highly concentrated pods are packed with the cleaning power of bioenzymes that obliterate stains from muddy hikes, backyard barbecues, and that inevitable iced coffee spill. And because spring is all about fresh starts, they revive fabrics, making your favorite pieces look and feel brand new. For a limited time only, our listeners get 20% off your entire order when you use the code MAJORITY at laundrysauce.com. That's 20% off your order at laundrysauce.com with promo code MAJORITY. Laundry Sauce also just made its Target debut. Shop Laundry Sauce in select Target stores now. I realize I say sauce like a New Yorker. It's one of the last words I still say with a New York accent. But needless to say, 90% of customers now love Laundry Day because of Laundry Sauce. Turn your least favorite chore into a self-care ritual. Maybe the best part about Laundry Sauce, they offer a full money-back guarantee, and if you don't get better smelling, cleaner laundry, you get a full refund. No questions asked. So, for a limited time only, our listeners get a 20% off for your entire order when you use the code MAJORITY at laundrysauce.com. That's 20% off your order at laundrysauce.com with the promo code MAJORITY. After you purchase, they'll ask you whether you heard about them, and please support our show and tell them we sent you. It's time to make Laundry Day the best day of the week. All right, James Comey has been indicted, Jason, and it appears it's over this social media post that he had where he put 8647 as a Seychelles post, 47th president, I guess. Maybe we'll start with Todd Blanche, who during a press conference, he and Kash Patel explained the gravity of this indictment and how long it took.
At a place where we can definitively say, to the extent we can definitively say, we will let you know.
Director Comey posted this almost a year ago. Why bring this case now? Did you always feel like this was a strong prosecution, or did something change recently?
This investigation just didn't come now. It's the result of a lot of work by law enforcement over the past year. We don't time when we bring cases around anything other than when the investigation is at a place where we should go to the grand jury, and that's exactly what we did in this case as well.
As a former FBI director,
what do you think it took, Jason, to investigate this? Really,
a couple of Google searches. They tried to indict him for other stuff before, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's what took time, is that didn't work.
Well, they had to fire Pam Bondi, I think. I mean, this is
Right.
Todd Blanche auditioning for the full-time role.
Mm-hmm.
He wants to deliver for the president indictments of his political enemies. Now, a conviction, for this would be astonishing. The damage is done, though. Like, we can make fun of it all we want, but, like, as much as I dislike James Comey and think he did some rather unprofessional things as FBI director, and then eventually as the head of security at Dalio's hedge fund, which was a little known.
I don't even know anything about that.
Yeah, there's a great book about it, it's not about Comey, but it's neither here nor there. My point is, I don't like Comey, but this is inappropriate and very costly that he has to go through this, and he shouldn't have to. Just like anybody else, he's not the only one. There are tons of people like Brennan, Clapper. He's going after all of the people who defended our country and kept us safe for so many years, and worked in public service. This is what he's doing.
Yeah, I hesitate to even get into the argument, right? Obviously, the term, it doesn't mean kill somebody. It just means no more of them, right? Like, politically, It's obviously what it means. The purpose here, it's not even about Comey. It is in the sense that Trump hates Comey, but it's really about intimidating anybody else who, wants to speak up against Trump and say, look, we have the power to do this to you. Uh, you know, I, it's childish, but it's really consequential.
Yeah, and there's obviously a double standard here. There's this guy Jack Pertz. I never know how to say his name, Persobiak or whatever, who has tweeted.
Yeah, I never know.
Who tweeted 8646, which is Biden, and that tweet is still up. He hasn't even taken it down.
I'm sure he'll be indicted anytime, Ravi.
Right.
They take things seriously over there.
Well, let's talk voting rights. Or at least let's start with redistricting. DeSantis is pushing for a new map. We talked about this, the possibility of this last week, but a new map that could eliminate 4 seats for Democrats. And that would tip the whole redistricting wars into a slight win for the Republicans if they actually got 4 seats out of this. Now, I was reading through the Cook Political Report and others who seem to say this is a bit nuanced because it's the new map, I think, assumes that Hispanics come out for Trump somewhat in the proportions that they did in the last election. And it seems like, they could net anywhere from 1 to 4 from this is, I guess, the easiest way to put it. So they may only flip 1 if Latinos revert back to historical trends for Democrats, but obviously we have no idea whether that's true or not.
They're also going to have to do it pretty darn fast in Florida if they intend for it to happen in this cycle, which I'm not even sure how. I mean, we're about to be in May. At some point, you have to print ballots. So I'm not sure how that would work. I wonder to what extent this is DeSantis auditioning for. I mean, he's on his way out. He desperately wants a cabinet position from, according to a lot of reporting. And you've got 2 potential positions for him. And that, if Blanche doesn't indict enough people for jaywalking who, said something bad about Trump, maybe that's a position for him. But DeSantis is also an Iraq vet. So there's every possibility that he could replace Hegseth. So this could just be him being like, hey, boss, I'm still out here doing the stuff. I've still got you in mind. It could be that too.
Yeah, I mean, I would be shocked if he left his job right now to go work for Trump's Pentagon in the middle of a quagmire of a war, but you never know. What's going on with this case that just went down before we started recording? So the Supreme Court just ruled 6-3, I guess, that some map in Louisiana was unconstitutional.
Yeah, this is quite bad. But it's not unexpected, but that doesn't make it any less bad. Based on, the way the oral argument worked and just the way things have been going, everybody has expected this for a while, but it doesn't make it any less bad. So what happened is that the court ruled 6-3 that that you can almost never consider race when drawing maps to comply with Section 2 of the Voting Rights Act, which was enacted to protect minority voters who have faced discrimination in elections for a long time. But the wording of this is confusing, so I need to explain it. So while it says you cannot consider race, what it's really saying is you can't consider race in challenging it, in either challenging districts the way they're drawn, if they're drawn in a way that is racially discriminatory, or, I mean, that's the effect of what it's saying, or if you are a state that is actually not trying to gerrymander in a way that is unfair, and you're trying to preserve representation based on the demographics and race in terms of population, then you're not allowed to do that either. So the reason that is so bad in this moment is because we've known that for quite, Republicans obviously were doing all this gerrymandering stuff well before, at least in this latest iteration, the last generation, much more the Democrats were saying, let's reform the system. What they're doing is, like in Texas, for instance, where they pulled the gerrymander and then there was a case against it. One of the things that held up that case was that it was proven that it wasn't just partisanship that they were using and partisan affiliation, that they were actually using race, because the court has ruled, I think wrongly, but the court has ruled over and over again that there is nothing constitutionally to forbid you from gerrymandering based on partisan affiliation. That you can draw districts all you want where you say, hey, we're just going to take all these Republicans and load them into this one district so that this other district over here is more competitive and a Democrat can win it. Like, you can do that. There's no, I think there should be, but there's no constitutional interpretation that says you can't do that. So what has, over the last few years, kept that from being able to be done quite so often is that frequently when Republicans are gerrymandering, if they don't have partisan affiliation readily available, what they end up doing is they end up using race as a proxy for partisan affiliation. And if they're not doing that while they are, executing a partisan gerrymander, they end up with a gerrymander that disempowers the representation of, say, African Americans, because you get rid of a district, like let's say you're Louisiana, for instance, and you have a pretty sizable African American population, but you draw a gerrymander that doesn't have a single district that is likely to represent an African American to represent it. You have, under Section 2, been able to challenge that and say you're depriving people of representation. This is saying, no, you can no longer challenge based on those grounds, which makes it way easier to gerrymander from a partisan standpoint. Now there's like potentially nothing to stand in the way of that. And in the South, it makes it way easier to, as long as you don't have, I mean, frankly, even if you have a paper trail, it looks like from this ruling that shows that you are, disenfranchising African Americans. From this ruling, it's like, if you don't specifically say we're doing it because they're African American, you can get away with it. Like if you say we're doing it because they're Democrats, you're fine. Even if the evidence shows that you were counting African Americans and doing it, because this goes to, it has to demonstrate that you were intentionally doing it for racial reasons. So it very thoroughly guts Section 2 of the Voting Rights Act, and that is very bad.
I still don't understand how this doesn't sync the Texas maps. I mean, I don't remember the exact details, but as you were alluding to, I remember like there was explicit communication there that they were using race.
But under Section 2, that did for a time sync those maps.
Oh, it did.
But now this is saying, well, that's fine. Because
I don't think I understand. So they're saying you can use race?
Yeah.
Okay.
They're saying no. Yes, that's what they're saying without saying it. Okay.
Okay.
Because what they're saying is you have to do it completely blind of race. But none of this technology is blind of race. So you can see the race. You can do all that. You can do whatever. You just can't say that race is what you're using. So meaning what they're saying is you can't protect a district on racial grounds. They're saying you liberals who care about stopping African Americans from being disenfranchised, that can't be your reason for drawing a district a certain way, and that can't be your reason for challenging a district. Like, you can just draw them however you're going to draw them, and you're not supposed to use race when you do it. But like, if you're using the fact that a lot of Democrats live in that neighborhood, that's totally fine. Now, never mind that neighborhood is all black, and that's how you may have come to the conclusion that it's a lot of Democrats. That's fine now. Because Alito goes so far as to say that this isn't really an issue anymore. He talks about how there's been, let me find this in here. He says, so while the court had previously assumed that states could consider race in seeking to comply with the Voting Rights Act, Alito wrote that allowing race to play any part in government decision-making represents a departure from the constitutional rule that applies in almost any other context. In justifying the court's change of course, Alito highlighted developments in recent years, including, quote, social change in the South, where most of the race-based redistricting challenges arise. He also cited the court's 2019 decision that paved the way for unfettered partisan gerrymandering. So it says, as a result, when civil rights plaintiffs challenge newly drawn maps, the state can argue as a defense that it was merely seeking to maximize partisan advantage. In the South in particular, party preference is often aligned with race, with most black people voting for Democrats. So this is where we've arrived now, is that Republicans are like, hey, if you're just trying to screw Democrats and it just so happens that you screw black people out of having a black representative, that's fine as long as your real reason Your primary reason and stated reason was you're just trying to screw them because they're Democrats, not because they're black. That's what this ruling says.
Wonderful. And what is it? Does this have any bearing on the midterm maps? Like, is this going to undo any maps?
Well, they're saying Louisiana might have to redraw, but they're also saying it's probably too late in the process for that. So we'll see. For this cycle, it's going to be a big deal for next cycle. But also, if Florida is actually trying to get it in time, it would mean that all they have to do is say we're trying to maximize our partisan advantage, and they could absolutely use it there. So I think this will more than likely be something we deal with in 2028 when people go in and try and redistrict again, which they may very well do, or in the next redistricting cycle. I don't think it's going to have a huge impact on this one. I could be wrong, but I think we're just close enough to the election.
Yeah.
But it's bad.
Well, I think like we're going to get to the point where there's like almost no swing districts in this country anymore. I think that's where we're heading in the next couple cycles.
Well, let's also remember though here that all of this was able to be done because some of this is constitutional jurisprudence, but mostly this is them interpreting the Voting Rights Act. And we got to this point where we lost preclearance, we lost all this stuff under Section 2 initially because it wasn't renewed, right? It had been renewed a bunch of times and it wasn't renewed, which is what the proposed John Lewis Voting Rights Act is all about. So let's remember that if we were to take the House and the Senate, now filibuster would probably stop it in the Senate, but then you can talk about, would you want to, undo the filibuster for this limited purpose? That's a whole other thing. But if you have a Democratic president, if you have a Democratic House and Senate, there is a world in which you can change this by simply passing a new, strong Voting Rights Act.
Yeah.
So it's not a forever thing.
Well, we'll have to really take aim at the filibuster, if we do get the Senate and
I guess,
and
the presidency, I think, but man, it's, I don't know. Can you imagine a world where there's no filibuster and Trump's president? And so, I think it will very much depend on the situation at the time and what you can put in place.
Speaking of the Senate, at least I saw this reporting as of yesterday, Senator Fetterman is going to vote for Kevin Warsh, the Fed chair nominee. I just don't know what's going on with Fetterman, honestly. This is from reporting from Burgess Everett from Semaphore. I don't really understand what's going on with Fetterman. It makes me very uneasy, both in the short term, but especially in the long term when we think about the implications for that seat. Like, does he run as an independent? Does he get primary challenge? Like, I just have so many questions about a Senate seat that's really, really important.
When is he up?
I would imagine the presidential year.
I think that's right. Yeah, because so he came in I can't remember, but
I think he was 22.
You can look it up first.
So that would be 28. Yeah, 22. Yeah.
Look, okay. He says 2028. I will go ahead and make the bold prediction that John Fetterman is not going to serve a second term in the Senate, and I also think that John Fetterman may have decided that already, and so I think that's where we're at here, because I just don't see how he beats, say, a Connor Lamb in a primary this next time around. And if he does get to the general, I don't see how he wins it when so few Democrats are going to want to support him. And I don't see him getting to the general. And if he runs as an independent, the only way I see that working in a place like Pennsylvania is if the Republicans were to lay down and support him somehow. So I just don't see that coming to pass.
The only thing that worries me is like the reporting you and I talked about a while ago about how he might not be of sound mind at the moment. And that his staff, he's been clashing with his staff and that they seem to think he's not of sound mind. And that makes me worried that he's not thinking rationally here.
I think the greater concern with him right now is that, let's say that what I could see playing out is that we do manage to take the Senate this year and he switches parties and then we lose it. I think that could happen.
Well, a couple other just lightning round things. Sergey Brin founder of Google, apparently has switched to the Republican Party, or at least the MAGA side of things. He has a MAGA girlfriend, and I think he is, as he is telling it, has been radicalized by the billionaire tax in California. I don't know if there's much to say about that, but it's just yet another billionaire moving over to the Republican side.
Here's what I would say about that, which is it's hard for me to put myself in the place of somebody who is a billionaire, has traditionally been for progressive causes, progressive ideas, including presumably progressive schemes of taxation, who then in the face of a billionaire tax says, I'm no longer going to be, I'm now so opposed to a billionaire tax. It's such a threat to me that I'm going to switch parties. I'm sure there's other things at play, but the reason that's so incredible to me is because do you know what every billionaire would have in common if the billionaire tax were passed? They would still be billionaires. And so it's amazing to me to imagine a human being whose quest for wealth is so insatiable that you have one, let alone many billions of dollars, and someone says you're going to have less money but still have at least $1 billion, and you're like, I have to change everything I believe. I can't imagine being a billionaire and opposing a billionaire's tax. Of course, our family's doing well, and I already support raising taxes on people like us, so I guess maybe that's not surprising, but it's hard for me to imagine.
Yeah. I think there's room for a debate about these taxes at the state level and whether if you live in those states, you want them or not. We have a big one in New York right now around, there's second home tax, which I think is not that controversial, but then there's a perpetual, a perennial argument about like wider wealth taxes and whether it would drive people down to Florida or drive companies away and all that. And honestly, I haven't looked enough at like what these dynamics are and what the tax rates are and all that. I plan to do it on a future episode of Lost Debate. I do think there's room for people to debate those things, whether you're a billionaire or you're just somebody who understands that there might be a zero-sum game going on here where people can pick up and leave and try to find the most effective way to capture revenue in the most sensible way. It seems to me that there's more to this than that. And I think this is part of a larger trend that both the fiscal argument, but also I think he also has praised Trump on his complete laissez-faire attitude towards tech, which I think is also part of it.
Mm-hmm.
So I think this is where we are, but I think that's it. I had another story here about just how gas prices are the highest they've been since the start of the war. I don't think that will surprise a lot of people, but I think that's all we have for stories for this week.
Yeah. What's new?
Well, I had birthday yesterday.
Oh, yeah. Happy birthday.
Oh, thanks, man. I went to see Aziz Ansari, who's very funny, in New York. And just back in New York. And I have one more trip. I go to Spain next week, but that's the last trip I'm taking, I think, for the summer. That's my plan. We'll see if I stick to it. What about you?
It's beautiful weather right now. And we've had some severe weather, but I mean, in general, we're getting a lot of sun and it's nice. And we're in that part of the year. I will tell a quick, funny parenting story, which is the other day, True and I were at his baseball practice, his baseball game, and we were heading home, and he was exhausted. It started early, and he'd been playing baseball for hours. So we're driving back home in the truck, and Diana and Bella they get their haircut from the same woman, and they had their haircut scheduled. And so we're almost to the house, and we get a call from Diana, and she's like, "I need you to come here now." And we're like, "What's up?" And she says, "Well, we just got here to Iris, which is the woman who cuts their hair, and Bella just threw up on herself." And so True's like, "Oh, do we have to?" And I'm like, "Yep, this is what the boys do. We go and we take care of the girls." So we get there, and here's what we find. This is really funny. So Bella, they show up. Bella throws up on herself. She was not feeling well, obviously, but like it was one of those ones where she puked and then felt totally fine. And so she was like, "I still want to get a haircut." So they go inside. And they go inside and they go into the bathroom, and Diana's like, "Okay, I'm just going to throw away these pants and she'll just get her hair cut like in her underwear. She's 5 years old. It's not a big deal. And of course she gets in there, and as she realizes as she's changing Bella dressed herself this morning. So of course Bella has on no underwear, right?
Oh no.
And so then like by the time I get there, Bella, happy as a clam, is sitting there with no pants on at all, getting her haircut, just chatting it up with Ira, and then True was like, I'm staying here, because he knew that the next task was very much a dad type task, and that is, you got to go get all this puke out of mom's car. So then we switched cars. So then I spent a couple of hours figuring out, and I don't know if you know this, Ravi, there's no reason you would, because you're a long time since college and you don't have kids. Almost no car washes, like the kind where you pull up and they'll do it for you on the inside. I've never encountered one that will actually clean it up
Vomit?
if there's vomit in there. They're like, we don't deal with human stuff. And so the key is you've got to do it all yourself and get it to the point where then you can find one where you can take it to and it looks good enough that they'll do it.
Yeah,
But
maybe they won't know what it is by
yeah.
that point. Is
So
she sick? Like, why did she throw up?
she was sick for like a couple of days. It was just like
Okay.
sometimes kids, they're like, we all had a thing going around the house, and little kids, their bodies handle it differently. And sometimes you can have the same thing as a little kid, but then they get a fever and they throw up and you don't, because it's how their little defense system works. And so, anyway, I spent a great deal of time, like it's like the way that and parents listening to this will recognize this, the way that this then throws off the rest of your weekend, because so I spent the rest of the day doing that. And then I spent the next day like, okay, this car seat still smells bad. So you got to get it out. Now I got to take all the pieces of the car seat apart, and then I got to get that into the washing machine. And, very sweet of Diana. She ended up actually, like, while I was sleeping in one of those mornings, she was like, hey, I put the car seat back together, which is so much harder to do than you would think. So anyway, that was the really exciting thing that happened for me this weekend.
Believe it or not, I've definitely never done the car wash thing, but I've cleaned up a lot of vomit and other things because I was a school principal,
Yeah.
So it was, we used to have this code. We had walkie talkies, and we had this code, which was green expo markers, was our code for there's like some kind of emergency, because you don't want the kids to know that you're asking for help.
You don't want to hear like, oh, there's puke in this hall, because then they're all like, who puked? Yeah.
I go to I get a call saying the green expo markers to Alabama 5, because we used to call the rooms after colleges. So I go to the door, and Miss I, who is our English teacher, looks at me panicked and goes, I won't use the actual kid's name, but she whispers to me, and she goes, Jeremiah shit his pants. And then I look over her shoulder, and I just see a group of kids who look like they are about to cry. They're all like sitting up, like behaving, but they look like they're like there's some kind of tear gas or something in there.
Oh God.
And so we had to go figure this out. And then I rode the bus with the kid home because he still smelled really bad. And I cleared the whole bus, moved everybody to the front, moved him to the back. It was tough.
That
tough
poor
day.
kid.
Yeah, it was tough for him. It was very tough. Yeah. And he, it's a darker story. He comes from the, toughest part of the city and the toughest project. Yeah, no, I don't want to bring us down. That was a tough story.
Yeah,
It's a bad way to end.
The rest
Bad
of the
way to-
show was enough of a bummer anyway.
Yeah, that was that. But
All right. Well, you can follow me at Jason Kander everywhere. You can follow Ravi at Ravi M. Gupta everywhere. Please leave a 5-star review. Thank you to the Midas Mighty. Remember, we all have a platform. Make sure to use yours today.